Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 222, Animal Magnetism and Hypnotism by L.H. Steiner, not to be confused with Rudolf Steiner. Link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. It's very, very short. It's 24 pages long. So, some people won't be as interested in it. I kept the price as low as possible. I don't actually control minimum pricing on Amazon, never have, and independent creators can't do that. Second and third links are to my books, blogs on Blogspot and WordPress. If you're interested in sort of the medical history, quack, science, hypnotism side of things, you go to the herbal category on either of these, and there are other works available. Some are actual herbals. There's some holistic sort of alternative medicine stuff, and then stuff like this. This is a rational manuscript from the mid-1800s. And what it's doing is it's trying to differentiate between the fraudulent side, which is mesmerism, the early wave of talking about fascination, like a snake fascinates a bird, stares at it, and paralyzes it, sort of thing. That sort of psychological effect, and mesmerism, which they would use like basically magnetized water and stuff like that, and some of it was kind of orgiastic, and Mesmer was a fraud. And hypnotism, which is sort of an adaptation that has more actual applications, and that's what's pointed out here. Now, it's actually funny because the same rationalism a century on that you see here, a century later, would be actually extended further, because some of the claims of hypnotists from this era, the author's saying, well, yeah, hypnotism can cause, you can dull pain, so that you could perform surgery without anesthesia, and you can cure madness and all these things. Mesmer was a fraud, but here's this real science. It's funny because a lot of those claims now have been debunked too. But there are applications of hypnotism. For instance, he points out there are certain ways to hypnotize certain animals. Like if you take a chicken and you put its head to the ground and draw a line quickly from its head out, it'll stay in that position for a good 10-15 seconds. You can take the chicken, you can lay it on its side, it'll sit there like it's a rock. And this is considered amusing and stuff like that. There are ways to physically cause paralysis, sort of like a mesmerism of sorts. This can be done with a clamp on the back of the neck with humans or with cats, actually. If you do it to a cat, they become basically immobile. It's kind of animal cruelty. I don't support doing that. But it's funny because a lot of the more over-the-top claims, at the time they were taken seriously, now they've been cast aside. I offer this sort of in the occult editions. Number one is a cautionary lesson, because mesmerism itself was more on the occult end, you could say. Hypnotism was rationalized as a science, but the claims were still false. Be very careful of the differentiation between spirituality and science in such ways. It's important for people who are interested in studying folklore to keep this in mind as well. You can see this if you read Lake Monster Traditions by Michel Morger and Claude Gagnon. By the way, one of my favorite books, my favorite non-fiction book of all time. That case is made. Attempts to rationalize the irrational it doesn't actually make it more real just because you put a veil of science over it. Just because the lake monster becomes a submarine doesn't mean it's still actually there. The phenomena itself, talking about some 500-year-old native tradition, it doesn't even make any sense. And so in the rare case that there is a phenomena, you have to try to judge accordingly. You can't simply try to rationalize things according to the going fashion of the day, which is exactly what this particular manuscript does. So I offer it in that sense, but also it does remark upon real hypnotism. Some of the claims are true, and it fits in with alternative medicine as well. I mean, the hypnotism is still used. It's just used in a more limited manner, usually psychological. It can help, if repeated hypnotherapy sessions can help with chronic pain to an extent, but you can't actually hypnotize a person and saw their leg off and they won't snap out of it. You can't actually do that. Not without anesthesia. If you anesthetize them locally, I suppose you might be able to do so, because they're in the days they're not feeling any stimuli, and therefore maybe I don't know if that's ever been experimented on. But it's very funny to see Mesmer regarded as a fraud, and some of the latter-day hypnotists that were frauds get called real scientists, real physicians at the time. Very, very interesting. Highly recommended despite its very short length, if that's the sort of material you're into. I've got a lot more alternative medicine, sort of hypnotism, psychic stuff actually to plow through. It's just to remember, on May 4th I start my vacation, so I won't be editing really during the next couple of weeks. 3 weeks roughly. So again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links to my books, blogs. There are other similar titles available. Gunpowder as a war remedy, highly recommended if you're interested in this as well. That's about all. Peace out.